Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're exploring a truly fascinating intersection that, honestly, I found incredibly surprising. We're going to look at how some of humanity's oldest, most structured systems of seeking guidance, specifically Indian Ramal and Western Geomancy, are actually meeting the digital age. It's this wild journey that takes us straight from the courts of ancient kings right to modern digital preservation.
Okay, let's dive right into this with a question that every single one of us has faced at some point. How should human beings act when certainty is just impossible? Think about it. Every single day we make decisions. Some are totally trivial, sure, but others, they quietly alter the course of our entire lives. Should I take this job? Is this the right time to move? Can I really trust this person? We gather the facts, we calculate the risks, and we lean hard on human reason. But eventually, reason hits a wall.
Even with our modern smartphones and just endless scrolling for data, human reason has a natural limit. No amount of Googling can reveal a future that hasn't actually happened yet, right? In those moments of total uncertainty, we are sitting in the exact same position as ancient kings deciding on war, or merchants risking their entire fortunes at sea. We are forced to make a move without knowing the outcome. And this isn't a weakness of intelligence, it's simply the condition of being human. Which brings us to our first section, seeking guidance beyond certainty. Historically, humanity didn't just guess, they created highly structured systems of symbolic inquiry to face this uncertainty. And before we judge these traditions, we really have to ask what they believe they were doing. And this brilliantly illustrates something super interesting. Across incredibly diverse traditions, from horary astrology and the I Ching to Indian Ramal and Western Geomancy, they all surprisingly start with the exact same thing. They don't start with the answer or even the symbols. They literally start with the specific moment of a sincere inquiry. The whole procedure is initiated by a genuine question.
And that leads perfectly into Section 2, the power of the question. In geomancy, you absolutely cannot get a good answer without first formulating a rigorous, meaningful question. If you ask a question without actually knowing what you want to know, well, the answer is going to be completely useless. Fleeting, idle curiosity simply doesn't work here. These authentic traditions demand an inquiry born out of real necessity or responsibility, kind of like a judge in a courtroom or a doctor diagnosing a patient. The clarity of the question literally shapes the entire process.
But it goes even deeper than just the words you use. The exact moment this sincere question becomes conscious in the seeker's mind is viewed as a profoundly meaningful entry point. It's not just about a clock ticking away minutes and seconds on the wall. Traditional civilizations viewed time as a canvas of ordered events. So, the moment a genuine doubt arises is the exact moment the inquiry enters the world, linking the seeker to a much larger ordered universe.
All right, let's shift gears a bit for Section 3, symbols and meaningful correspondence.
So how do these ancient systems actually process the significance of that exact moment? Well, they do it through the language of symbols. Because, let's face it, some forms of knowledge just can't be conveyed directly through plain words. But the crucial point here is that divinatory symbols are not magical identical twins to reality. They don't literally become the thing they represent. Think of a compass, right? A compass corresponds to the Earth's magnetic field. It points to it, but the compass itself isn't the magnetic field. In that exact same way, geomantic figures are simply indicators pointing to a larger, complex pattern in reality.
And this brings us to the absolute backbone of geometry, the principle of correspondence. This is the philosophical belief that reality isn't just some chaotic mess of isolated events, but that it actually possesses beautifully ordered patterns. Meaning doesn't come from a single, isolated symbol. It comes from the structured relationships between symbols. It's a lot like how individual musical notes only create a recognizable melody when they are arranged together in a specific, meaningful relationship.
Now for Section 4, the art of judgment.
Now here is a major paradigm shift for you. Popular fortune-telling often just decodes a single symbol in isolation, staring into a crystal ball hoping for some mysterious vision. But the true heart of Indian Ramal and Western geomancy is judicial reasoning. The practitioner acts exactly like a judge weighing conflicting evidence, or a physician looking at a complex set of symptoms. They gather the facts, they evaluate the relationships, and they rely on centuries of refined logic to reach a solid conclusion.
Let's move along and see how this builds in practice. It happens sequentially. Step 1 is always that sincere, responsible question we talked about. Step 2 generates the geomantic figures. These act as our symbolic witnesses. And Step 3 is where the real heavy lifting happens, judicial reasoning and synthesizing that evidence. The practitioner doesn't just invent meanings. They apply incredibly strict rules to evaluate the dialogue between the symbols. This all culminates in a final ruling, which interestingly enough is sometimes literally called the judge.
And this brings us to our final section, Ancient Wisdom, Modern Technology.
Because Ramal and Western geometry run on these strict rules rather than just pure intuition, they are uniquely suited for the digital age. We can actually faithfully digitize the complex procedures, the rules, and the computational steps of generating those figures. I mean, computers are brilliant at that. But what remains strictly human is the wisdom, the ethical context, and the lived responsibility of the final decision. Technology handles the heavy computational listing so the human can focus purely on the wisdom.
And this exact philosophy is the driving force behind SAGE, the School of Ancient Geomantic Education. They are the modern pioneers actively preserving and disseminating this amazing knowledge. Through their platform at dotsofdestiny.com, they are faithfully mapping the ancient procedural logic of both Indian Ramal and Western geomancy into highly functional, accessible digital tools. And they're doing it by treating each tradition independently and with the deep, deep respect they truly deserve.
SAGE's methodology is just brilliant in its boundaries. They ensure that technology serves the tradition, absolutely not the other way around. By separating the computation from the explanation, they let the ancient rules of Ramal and geomancy do the actual judging. Artificial intelligence isn't used to invent answers or play oracle. It is used strictly as a communicator. It simply takes the final procedurally generated judgment and translates it into clear, highly readable language for the modern seeker.
Which leaves us with this final, provocative thought. If modern technology, when used responsibly, can so strictly and faithfully preserve the rigorous logic and philosophical reasoning of the ancients, what other lost wisdom is out there, just waiting to be digitized? What other centuries-old conversations are we finally ready to rejoin? I really hope this explainer has sparked your curiosity to look at these ancient traditions in a whole new light. Keep asking great questions and keep learning.